Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another episode of the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec and today I'm going to do some kind of a live teach for the new game from Dever Games called The White Castle, which is from the same designers who also designed the Red Cathedral. So here is how it plays. I'm not going to do a full setup teach, but let me introduce the components. Here we have the game board depicting the White Castle. This is the castle area with 3 floors. The lowest level is for the stewards, the second one for the diplomats, and this is the highest level of this White Castle. Each level has its own cards. Here we have 3 randomly drawn cards from the cards or the deck of the steward cards. These are diplomat cards, again, 2 of them randomly placed here, and this is the daimyo card. You can place put the remaining daimyo cards back into the box. Now, then here we have these die tiles. They are also randomly distributed at the start of the game. There's one restriction. Each room must have at least 2 different colors. There are 3 colors: black, red, and white. Then here we have training yards. There are some tiles with the corresponding side blue or yellow side up. Remaining tiles are placed back into the box. This is the outside of the castle area. This is the gate. This is called the well. And here we have the garden area with 3 bridges. You can use these bridges that you assemble before the start of the game. If you don't want to use them, you can play with these pre-printed bridges, but these definitely look really beautiful. These dice are randomly rolled and arranged from the lowest on the left side to the highest value on the right side. And this is the passage of time track. These are tokens for each player, and based on the position of these tokens, the player order is determined. The player on top is going to be the first. And here we have the tokens for marking the player's score. Looking at the player board, each player has 15 meeples. These are courtiers, these are gardeners, and these are warriors. And here we have 3 resources: food, iron, and mother of pearl. These tokens mark the number of resources you have. Then at the end of the setup, each player will choose a pair of the action card and the starting resources card. You take all the resources from the resource card. So here we have coins. These are daimyo seals, and here you can choose any one resource. Let's say this one. And then this symbol is for the decree card. When you take this card, place it here. This is called a lantern area. Then you take the resource card as well and place it in the same way. And the action card remains in this space, and that's the end of the setup. The White Castle is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players, and it takes place in Japan in 1761. Players take on the roles of minor clans in Harima province. This province is governed by the daimyo, the leader, Sakai Tadazumi, from the Himeji Castle, which is this White Castle. In this game, players will try to increase their influence in the White Castle by placing their family members into various sectors or segments of this castle, either inside the castle or in these training grounds or in these gardens. And they will also try to proceed on this passage of time track as far as possible to get victory points. These victory points are called clan points, and the player with the most clan points at the end of the game is the winner. The game is played over 3 rounds, and here is the round tracker. In each round, players will take 3 turns, alternating taking these turns in this player order. So here we would have yellow, red, and blue. Then again, yellow, red, blue, and yellow, red, blue, and that's the end of the round. So with 3 rounds in the game and 3 turns per round, players will only take 9 turns during the entire game, which means you can do quite a lot on your turn. Now, how your turn looks like: first of all, you choose 1 die from the display here, and you can only choose the leftmost or the rightmost die of any color. In this example, you can only choose this red 3 or 6. black 1 or 4 or white 2 or white 6. These dice in the middle of the bridge are not available. After you take the die, if there is any die in the middle of the bridge, slide the die to the position of the previous one so that there's always one die on the right side and one on the left side. Obviously, later in the game, if there are no dice in the middle and you take this die, there is no other die that you can move to the leftmost position. Now, after you take the die, you have to play the die without changing the value on any action space. The action spaces are marked with this die symbol, and there are 5 of them in the castle. Then there's 1 action space here, 2 action spaces over here, and there are 3 more action spaces on your player board. Your player board is also called the domain board. You may place the die in any empty space, or later in the game it may happen, let me take this example, that there may be a die in that space, so in that case you may place a die on top of the previously placed die. However, you can only stack the dice like this here on the game board, on the main board, and only in a 3 and a 4 player game. You may never stack more than 2 dice in any single space. In a 2 player game and a solo game, you cannot stack the dice on the main board, and you can never stack dice on your player board. Then after placing the die, let me say that this number 3 goes into space with number 4. You either have to pay the coins or you receive the coins. If the die has a lower value than the value where you place the die, you have to pay the coins, and you have to pay the number of coins, which is the difference in these numbers. So you need 1 coin from 3 to get to 4. So take 1 coin from your personal reserve and place it or pay it back to the general reserve. If the die value is higher than the value where you place the die, and that can also be the case when you place the die on top of another die, in this example I'm placing 3 on top of 2, in that case you gain the number of coins equal to the difference, so here you would receive 1 coin. If you place a die on the space with the same value, you don't gain any coins and you don't pay any coins. After paying or gaining coins, you can perform the actions in the corresponding room or corresponding area of the game board. However, before you do that, if you take the die from this left side, so if you take the die with a lower value, as this symbol indicates, you may take the lantern reward. The lantern reward is this on your player board, on your domain board. You can gain all these benefits in any order you want. In this example, you would gain 1 victory point, you would gain 1 food. I will describe all these benefits later in the video. So then you take the corresponding action from the area where you placed the die, and that's the end of your turn. Those actions are marked with all these symbols. I will cover them later in the video. But in general, you will gain resources, and then you will spend those resources to place your family members in the training yards, in the palace, or in these gardens. With this action you will also move on this passage of the time track, and with all these actions you will try to gain as many victory points or clan points as possible, because the game ends at the end of round 3, and there are 4 major areas where you gain victory points. First of them is this passage of time track. The further you get, the more victory points or the clan points you score. Then in these gardens, every single gardener here will score a certain number of victory points. These are marked at the bottom here. Let's take a look at the detail. For each gardener you will score 9 victory points on this card. On this one it will be only 1 victory point, but the card has a very powerful beneficial action. Then the third area is the castle. Again, very similarly, the courtiers in the first, second or the third floor will score indicated number of victory points, and finally the warriors in the training grounds will also score victory points based on in which training ground they are and based on how many courtiers you have inside the palace. So that's the gameplay in a nutshell, and now let me cover all the actions on the main board and also on your domain board, and we will start with the actions here in the castle. The castle has 5 rooms, 2 of them in the second floor, 3 of them in the first floor. They all work in the exact same way. When you place a die in that floor, you take the action which corresponds to this die tile of the same color. So in this example, the first player who placed this die here, the black die, was able to perform this action, and then the player who placed the red die here would be able to perform this action. If, for example, you take a die and place it here, there are 2 actions that correspond to 2 white dice or white die tiles, which means you can perform one or the other or both actions in any order. Again, don't worry about these symbols yet, I will explain them in just a minute. Since we have this color restriction here, for example, in this room you can only place a black die or the red die, which means you would not be able to take the white die and use it in this area for the moment or at the moment. Similarly, you cannot take this black die and place it here because you cannot perform any action in this room with the black die. So that's the castle, 5 action spaces in the castle. Let's go outside the castle. There are 2 action spaces here. When you take a die and place the die in any of these spaces, you can perform one or the other action, which is to the right or to the left of the die. So if you place it here, you may perform this action or this one. Again, I will explain these actions in just a minute. Let me just add that there is absolutely no color restriction here. You can place dice of any color there. Then, the next one is this well area. This is an area where you simply gain resources. This value, this action space always has a value 1. Again, there is no color restriction and there is even no restriction of number of dice that can be placed here. So if one player places the die here, you always gain the daimyo seal and then the benefits of these 2 tiles. These are random. In this example, you can take 1 resource of any type and 1 coin, and then you can place the die somewhere in this well area, because later, let me put it like this, later in the game, when any player would use the same space, same action space again, that player would take these benefits. In addition, this player would get now 5 coins. Again, place the die over there. Then the next player may decide to do the same thing, and so on and so on. There is no limit to the number of dice that can be used in the well area. And finally, there are 3 more action spaces on your domain board, on your player board. These action spaces always have the value of 6. So when you place a die here, you always have to pay coins unless you place the die with the value 6. And then when you place a die in one of these rows, and obviously you have to match the color of that space, take all the visible rewards from that row. At the start of the game, here is only 1 food, 1 iron here, and 1 mother of pearls in this case. But later in the game you may have these spaces revealed. So in this example you would gain 1, 2, 3 food, 2 coins. Then you go to the end of the row, there are some arrows here, and you also perform the action which corresponds to that row. In this example, regardless whether you place the die in this or this row, you always take this action. Later in the game, this card can be moved to the lantern area and can be replaced with other cards. In this case, if you place the die in the first row, you would gain these visible rewards and then take this action. If you place a die here, again you take the visible rewards and you would perform this action, and so on. So what kind of actions you can take? What are these symbols over here? Anytime you have you see the resources with the black number, you gain that number of resources. The resources have these 3 symbols: food, iron, and the mother of pearls. So for example, here you would take 2 mother of pearls, increase that number with this tracker. You may never go higher than 7. You may never pay more than you have. If you have the red number, you have to pay. In this example, you have to spend 1 daimyo seal, and then you can perform this action. By the way, I forgot to mention that anytime on your turn, you can convert 1 daimyo seal to 1 coin. So you return 1 daimyo seal to the general reserve and you gain 1 coin. Or you may return 2 daimyo seals to the general reserve and gain any one resource. Then these red fans are immediate victory points. In this example, it will be 1 victory point. Mark your victory points with these fan tokens on this scoring track. Then these yellow fans are victory points or the clan points you gain at the end of the game. Then this is the action that allows you to move on this passage of time track. It represents your influence in the court. Again, with this black number, you move that number of spaces forward. If you move forward and there is another token in that space, place your marker on top of that, or place your token on top of the other token. And if you have to cross these 3 trees, so if you have to move to the next area, you have to pay the indicated number of daimyo seals, 1, 2, or 3. If you don't have that number or that many daimyo seals, you may not move forward, so any additional steps would be forfeited. If you do, you simply move forward, and this order determines the player order for the next round. Then anytime you get this lantern symbol, as we already seen, you gain this lantern reward, which means you activate all these symbols in any order you want. Then let's take a look at the back of the rulebook where all these symbols are explained. Anytime you have an action with this white, black, or red die, which looks like this, you can perform any white, red, or black action which is inside the castle. You can choose any one action. So for example, with the red symbol, you would be able to choose this action or this one, it's up to you. This symbol will allow you to take any action corresponding to any white, black, or red symbol anywhere inside the castle. So essentially you can take any action from these cards. Then this symbol allows you to take any action in the white or with the white background. Again, it has to be inside the castle, but with the white background. You would not be able to take this action or this one, only the actions with the white background. And finally, with this one, you can perform any action on your player board, on your personal domain board. So it's the same as if you would place a die here or here or here. So you take that action, including triggering the action on your action card. Then there are 4 more remaining symbols which we have to go through. This one we actually went through already. This is the symbol for well, which means you simply take this action, you take the daimyo seal and the benefits from these tiles. Now, this is the symbol for the courtier action. The courtier action is taking place here at the gate of the castle, and you can perform the upper or the lower action or both of them. With the first one, you have to pay 2 coins, and then you can place a courtier at the gate of the castle. So after paying the coins, take the leftmost courtier, and courtiers are in this top row of your player board. Take the leftmost courtier and place it at the gate of the castle. There is absolutely no limit to the number of courtiers which can be waiting here at the gate of the castle. And then with the second action, you may either spend 2 mother of pearls or 5 mother of pearls, and when you spend 2, you can move 1 level up in the castle. After you pay 5, you may move up to 2 levels. When you spend these resources, you have to reduce the number, so let's say we would pay 2 mother of pearls, and then you can move 1 level up, which means from the gate you can go to the first floor, from the first floor you can go to the second, and from the second you can go to the top level. For this second action, you may use the courtier, which has been just placed here with the first action, or if you already have a courtier in the castle, you may use any one courtier, your courtier in the castle, and advance 1 level. If you advance 2 levels, you have to use one courtier only. So for example, if you have two courtiers, you would not be able to move one level up with one of them, then one level with the other one. You have to choose one of them, anyone in the castle or waiting at the gate, and move 2 levels up. Now, when you move up, let's say I pay 2 pearls and I decide to take this one and move 1 level up. First, take the action card from your action area on your player board and add it to your lantern row. Then take the card from the castle where you just moved with your courtier and place it in your action area on your player board. Then you can immediately perform one action with white background from that card, and then draw the new card in the corresponding floor and place it in your current room. If no cards would remain here, which means you would not be able to replace this card with a new one, then you can only take the action with the white background, but you skip all other steps, which means you don't take this card from your action area, you don't place it in the lantern area, you don't take this card. All you can do after moving up, simply performing one action with the white background. Taking these actions is not the only benefit when moving up in the castle. When you have a courtier at the gate, it scores 1 victory point at the end of the game. Courtiers in the first floor would score 3 victory points, then 6 victory points in the second floor and 10 victory points in the top level. When you move up and you get to the highest level, first you take the lantern reward, and then if there are any spaces available on this daimyo card, you can place your courtier there and immediately gain that benefit. If all these spaces would be occupied and you get there with another courtier, you simply take the lantern reward and keep your courtier in this highest level. As indicated by the symbols, there is no limit to the number and the colors of the courtiers in this highest level. Then this next action is the warrior action. With this action, you may take the leftmost warrior from your player board and place it in any training yard. There are 3 training yards here, three training yards. In order to place your warrior in the first one, you have to pay 1 iron, you have to pay 3 iron to put it here, and then 5 iron to put it in this training rounds. After you place it there and pay the indicated costs, you may take the benefit from that training yard. So here, as we already seen, you can take any action from inside the castle. Again, there is absolutely no limit to the number of these warriors in any training grounds. And finally, with this gardener action, you may take the leftmost gardener on your player board and place it in the garden, but you can only place it in the garden space where you don't already have a gardener. So there's a restriction that each player can only have maximum 1 gardener in each space. Then pay the cost indicated in that space. Here it's 4 foot, and after paying the costs, you can perform the corresponding action. So here you would be able to pay 3 coins to take the courtier action. As we've already seen, similar to the castle, each space has a victory points that you score at the end of the game if you have a courtier, if you have a gardener in that space. And that's it, that's all the actions in the game. After each player performs 3 actions, the round will be over. First, you will adjust the turn order for the next round. Let's say we have the situation like this. The player furthest ahead on this track goes first. If there are more players in the same space, then the player on top is first. So in this case, we would have blue player, then yellow, then red. Then so adjust the player order with these heron tokens. Then if this would be the end of round 3, the game would be over after adjusting the turn order. If not, these gardeners will have a chance to perform actions, and at the end of the round, let me do it like this, and let's say, yeah, let's keep it like this. At the end of the round, there will be always only 3 dice here. If you have a gardener where the bridge has any dice left, then those gardeners may again perform the corresponding actions. So here both yellow and the red player can perform this action, then the red player would be able to take this action and also this one. Blue player doesn't perform this action because there are no dice left on the white bridge. Only then you take all the dice and re-roll them again. So you take dice from your player board, from the bridge, from anywhere in play, then roll the dice and arrange them from lowest to the highest value and place them on the bridge, having the lowest value on the left, highest value on the right. Do this with the black and the white bridge as well. Then move the round marker to the next round, and that's the end of the round. At the end of the third round, the game will be over and then players will score victory points. You will score these golden fans, golden victory points. So if your token is somewhere in this area of the passage of track, you would score 3 victory points, 6 victory points if you are somewhere here. And if you reach this area, you score number of victory points based on the position of your token. Then score the courtiers which you have in the castle, including the gate, because each courtier at the gate will score 1 victory point. Each courtier in this first floor scores 3 victory points. Each one in the second floor scores 6 victory points. And each one here at the top level scores 10 victory points. The same for gardeners. This one would score 3 victory points. This one 7 victory points. So you count all these victory points from the garden, and then the warriors. Let me place another red warrior here and here. First, you count the value of these warriors. Each warrior in this training ground is worth 2 victory points. Each one in this and this area is worth 1 victory point. So that would be, for the red player, it would be 1 plus 1 plus 2, that is 4 victory points. And you multiply these points by the number of your courtiers inside the castle. In this example, red player has 1, 2, 3 courtiers inside the castle. Don't count the courtiers at the gate. So 2, 3, 4 victory points multiplied by 3 courtiers, that would be 12 victory points. And finally, score the victory points for your resources. If you have 7 resources of any type, you score 2 victory points. If you have 3 to 6 resources of a type, you would score 1 victory point. And if you have fewer than 3 resources, then you would score 0 victory points. So in this case, this player would gain 2 victory points for food, 1 victory point for iron, and no victory points for the pearls. In addition, you score 1 victory point for each 5 coins and daimyo seals. So here we would have these 5 coins plus daimyo seals. That would be 1 victory point, and then the player with the most victory points is the winner. So that's how we play the White Castle. If you have any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. If you like the series, please subscribe. You can support the channel on the Patreon page. My name is Branislav Berec. You've been watching Game in a Nutshell, and hope to see you next time. I would like to thank everyone who has ever supported the channel, and especially the current supporters listed on this page. If you too would like to support the channel in creation of videos like this and other video tutorials and other content on this channel, please visit the patreon.com/Nithrania.